Hey, welcome to my podcast. I'm Manina, and you are listening to an episode of Aspire Big, Inspire Bigger podcast. Hey, Inspirers, welcome back to the Aspire Big, Inspire Bigger podcast. I have a special guest, Coach Love of Keepsake Motivation. Thank you for joining me, Coach Love.
Hey, Mo. Thank you so much for having me here. I always enjoy having conversations with you and feeling your beautiful energy virtually. So thank you so much for that. I'm happy to be here today.
Thank you. So, Coach Love has a special place in her heart for the healing of men, and I think that's such a cool thing because you don't really find too many women in that space. So this is really cool. We want to talk about that today.
Thank you. It's pretty cool most of the time.
Yeah. Right. So, Coach Love, how did you get started in what you're doing? And you could just tell the people what exactly you do, what's your title, and how you got started.
Sure. I'm happy to share. I'm actually a certified life coach, and I chose to particularly focus on men just because of my own personal history with men, and just seeing that there's this big gap in the space of support for men for their mental, emotional, and spiritual health. So some of it was divine choosing, and some of it was just living life and just seeing, how men can be broken and, mentally challenged and emotionally challenged and spiritually challenged and not have this space where they feel safe to confide in someone about where they are in that space. So that's the other part of what I guess catapulted me into this space, is just that there's a big lack of support for men. And someone has to do it, right? I'm only one person, but, realizing that every person deserves an opportunity to redeem themselves. And I think that redemption, though, comes through having an opportunity to properly heal yourself.
What made you choose men?
Women
need to heal too. But what made you choose men?
Probably because everyone, society already has enough of everything for women in that space. I feel like, I wanted to make sure that I chose a space that I knew there could be just phenomenal impact, and really deep impact. And then again, like I said, just my own life experiences. I happen to be one part of my story that I've shared is that, as a child, I was abused by men. So realizing, though, that in the space of me learning to forgive them, that, people tend to hurt people because they've been hurt. And realizing that, changes the dynamic of how you view a person and how you view situations that you've been in your life. And I think once I did that, it made it easier for me to say, hey, you know what? There's a reason that men are this way. And there's a reason that they feel like they can't seek out the professional guidance they need in the space of healing. Right. And because of that kind of, again, compelled me as a mother that has a son. Of course, I've shared with you guys, I was raised by my dad, who was a single father most of my life. And just seeing, again, in our own communities, the lack of support for mental, emotional, and spiritual health. So it was definitely about something in my heart, but it was also about the reality of what exists in the world, that there's not enough people advocating for the support of men being mentally, emotionally, and spiritually healthy.
Right. And there's I can definitely agree to that, because there's so many men who are just have such a hard time talking about their feelings. Forget about to women, to their own friends, or even telling themselves the truth. They have such a hard time because society doesn't really give them a space to say, hey, I'm not feeling too great right now. You know, for women, we kind of get to say so many things, which for a lot of women is kind of insulting if someone else says it. But we get to say it's that time of the month and I don't feel good, or we get to say, I feel so sad right now. I just want to cry. We get to say those things, but men don't really get to say those things, not in that way, and not in a productive way. You see the anger or you see the destructive behavior, but you don't get to see it in expression of emotion. So that's totally
That is very true. I think, we see men go to the gym together, but I promise you, most of those men, while they're at the gym together, they're not having the full in-depth conversation about how they, where they are mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I kind of joke about that sometimes, about how every time I go to the men's health page, it's just some guy there showing the guys how to pump some more iron and how to do more squats and how to get an ab, a 6-pack or 8-pack, whatever it's called. But there's never someone just talking saying, hey, you know what, guys, I'm not feeling my greatest. I'm kind of got a little bit of chip on my shoulder and I'm not sure why. I'm feeling a little more aggressive than I normally feel. Or maybe I'm not feeling like myself. Maybe I'm feeling like I'm struggling with even communicating or finding the words to share with someone how I'm feeling. Because sometimes I know for any person that's in a really vulnerable space, it can be really difficult to try to even articulate that. Sometimes there's unbelievable amount of pain and suffering. And right in the moment, you don't know how to always put that into words. And that's something I really, truly did discover just in the space of becoming a mother and also being, of course, in relationships with men, and then really intensely now as a coach, where every conversation I have, that's the hardest part of the conversation, just to get them started to say, like, can you tell me how you're feeling or what you're thinking? And sometimes that struggle is so deep that they can't even articulate it. So it's a real issue, and I think we have to spend more time talking about it. And we as women that are attached to men and young boys, we're mothers or sisters or daughters and co-workers and best friends, and there's some form and fashion in your life where you're connected to a man or a boy that has possibly, or could be right now in this moment, suffering through some sort of mental anguish or emotional, like I said, challenges, and even sometimes feeling spiritually disconnected. We don't talk enough about that in the space of what boys and men need from us as women. So when I speak about it, I'm talking about what I do as a coach with men, but I'm also realistically saying, like, hey, women, we have to take notes as well, because we're the ones that are caring for these kings, right? So some of that responsibility does fall directly on us, and we have to work to do more to create a safer space and a confident space for the boys and the men in our lives to feel like when they are struggling in those spaces that they can come to us and talk about it.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you see when you work with men that the women in their lives kind of misunderstand about men in general?
Of course, I think there's so many myths about men that they're so strong, so they're never in pain or they're never suffering. Some of us think it's mysterious when a man is quiet, not realizing that a man that's really quiet or a young boy that's really quiet, there's something brewing under the surface that could show itself in a really unhealthy way. It's not always sexy when everyone else in the room is talking and the one person you zone in on is super quiet, won't make eye contact, and then when you approach them, doesn't even feel comfortable having a conversation with you. The reality is there's something under the surface that's preventing them from even just being in the space enough to be comfortable to engage us. And I think the other thing is that we have this false belief that men don't require mental health support. Men are pretty much conditioned from the time they're boys to compartmentalize. You don't spend a lot of time as a young boy or a man in our society where you're allowed to cry or say, this hurts, or I didn't like that, or to even express yourself, because typically when men or boys are allowed to express themselves, just depending on the energy around it and the tone and the volume, it can be misconstrued as something that's very threatening or oppressing to people, and they're now in the space of fear, which means, again, they're not listening to what the root cause may be in the moment. So there's a lot of things, I think another thing, we believe too much in the stigma that mental health is like not, a good thing. Like, you have to work towards taking care of yourself. Your mental, emotional, and spiritual health is always going to be part of your journey. So if we can't even talk about it, of course we're not doing anything about it. And I say that all the time. The things that you're going through or that you're doing, if you can't talk about it, you shouldn't be doing it. If you have a problem talking about yourself, that's an issue. If you have a problem being honest with yourself about the space that you're in mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, again, that's an issue. We have to just be okay as women with not saying, oh, well, because he's saying he's not happy or because he's upset, that he's being soft or he's being a sucker. The stuff that women like to say that makes men feel like, I can't talk to you about anything because the level of respect that I want you to have for me, I feel like you're going to lose that if I'm vulnerable with you. But that, again, that goes back to us as women. We have to do our hard work as well so that we create a different kind of energy with the boys and men in our lives. But a lot of it is just, it's what we've been taught, society, education-wise, in school, through media, through our families. A lot of behaviors are things that we've just been generally, through generations of our journey, people share those same ideas and we just keep perpetuating them instead of breaking the cycle. It's not really a space where I like to say we should place fault, but we should just realize and recognize that obviously what we've been doing doesn't work and we have to do something different to make it better.
So what are some things that women can do to make it better? So I'll give you a small scenario and then you can tell me some, maybe like 3 tips you would tell someone to make it better. So I know you do work with the men, but obviously you would have tips that make their life easier. So as a woman, I would want to know,
Right.
Like, so I'm married and my husband is triggered by maybe something going on at work, but I'm seeing that his moods are changing and he's short focused and a little snappy. Like, what are 2 to 3 things that you could tell a woman to try to do to make the situation better, but at the same time, not just soothe the situation, but like actually find a solution within the situation?
Absolutely. I would say the first thing is, as hard as this may be, ladies, is don't take it personal. Not every instance, every moment is about you and what you've done. It's more or less, people in the course of a day, we're all carrying around something that we haven't shared with, the person that we're committed to in a relationship. And that could be for so many different reasons. So right in the moment, just stay in that moment. Don't let it, don't take yourself so far off into the distance that you come up with some really irrational reason for why you think he's being this way and why he's treating you like this. More often than not, it has nothing to do with you directly right in that moment. So just try not to take it personal. That's the biggest thing. And then I would say the next thing is don't judge. We have a tendency that when we sense something or we see something different, now we get into the space of judging. And typically when you're judging someone, you're criticizing them. And typically when you're criticizing, that means you're talking more than you should be. And when you're talking more than it should be, that means you're not listening. And if you're not listening, that means you can't take notes. So in that space, learn to just stay in the moment. Be present with whatever that particular thing is that's happening right then. And then just allow yourself to stay open to whatever that experience is. Don't try to put it in a box. Don't try to craft some other idea about it. Let it be what it is. And then don't make any judgments about who you are in that moment, because again, the moment's not about you. And then don't make any judgments towards that man. If you're saying that you're committed to that man and you love him, judgment is not an option in your relationship. We have to unlearn that kind of, information. But that's maybe another struggle for all of us, but that's the next thing. And I would just say, after that, make sure that you're not the source of that man's pain. That's another part of it. Even though it may not be about you, as the conversation goes or as those moments continue, you may discover that you're a trigger for that man in some way, shape, or form. And if that's the case, don't be afraid to be honest with yourself about that and to do the work that's necessary to get yourself to evolve into a space where you're not triggering this person, especially if you're meaning to stay with them and continue into like this long relationship. So, those are the three things, just don't take it personal. Don't judge yourself or the man in that moment. And then be honest enough to realize if you're a trigger for that person.
That's good. And I think that a lot of women are taught, and maybe a lot of women are might even resent having to still have the responsibility of possibly being a trigger and doing more self work, because women are really taught like do the work on yourself and you'll find the right guy and this and that. And it's a little different for men. I think it's changing. I think it's evolving. For men, it's like get what you can get, see what you can see. It's never like, like what you're doing. Like, no, stop. Here's the mirror. Look at yourself. What do you want to see versus what you're seeing? Let's work on this. Let's love on this part. Let's grow on this part. But it's not really that. So I know it could seem frustrating to a woman to hear like, oh, you might be his trigger. Like, come on. But it might be right. And it's okay. It's okay to continue to work on yourself for your whole life, because the truth is we all should be working on ourselves all the time. We're all going to he's going to trigger something in you as a woman, and you're going to be like, if I was a man right now, I'd punch you in your whole mouth, sir. Just fight. Real fight. You would be angry at him sometimes because he's triggered you in his actions, and he's going to continue to push that button, not because, and in him, even if he doesn't want to, or he doesn't mean to hurt you, it's just something in you that you have experienced in your childhood or earlier years or before him, and that that's getting triggered. So you have to understand that what happened for a man as well, and on top of that, the societal pressure of not being able to talk about your feelings.
Right.
Imagine the pressure.
Right. I'm glad you said that, because you're right. A lot of times women, we're acting out based on our triggers, and we're not realizing that, in the moment, we're just, we're reacting to something that we have under the surface. And just in that moment, the timing of it just may not be good. And now you've triggered your significant other. And then you're both there triggered in the moment, like, what's going on? And you're thinking that it's each other. And sometimes it's just the moment, the energy, there's always a lot of built up, stress and strife and emotion. And then right in the moment, sometimes it just all comes out. And now we're thinking, oh my gosh, maybe we shouldn't be together, or we hate each other, and this is the end of the relationship, not realizing that it's something much bigger than that. And it's really about what we're carrying in with ourselves, if we healed from it or not. Because if you have, certain things are not going to trigger you anymore. But if you haven't, then yes, maybe right in the moment, if I raise my voice at you, now you're angry because you feel like I sound like your mother, who you have like the absolute not healthy relationship with. So, okay, I didn't know that, but now that I know that, let me work on that. And then in that moment, you as the woman, instead of just saying, oh, he told me I can't say nothing to him. That's not what he's saying. He's saying, hey, the volume and your language and your sister necking is just making me feel like I don't like that. And because you sound like my mom, I don't like her like that, and you know that. So why are you doing that? I don't like that. But think about it. Has he ever really told you that? And if that's the case, then as a woman, just adjust your tone a little bit, adjust the volume, and don't be so sarcastic all the time. Like, women like to, as coy as we can be when we really want something, when we really want to prove a point, we know how to be real disrespectful in our tone, right? And now he like, yo, why are you talking to me like that? Or instead of him saying something, now he's reacting in a physical way because you didn't just cross the line. So I'm not saying that's the proper response, but we've been talking about that, especially now with the pandemic, the increase in the violence between couples, because we all in the house together, everybody's triggered. You blink at me, now I'm ready to fight, and we ready to tear the house up. But the reality is those issues were probably there way before now, but now you're forced to be in a space where you got to address it. And right in a moment, it's hard to like address it when you feeling some kind of way about what the person said or what they doing. You're kind of like reacting instead of responding. I think that's the other thing that happens a lot of times. Based on our own personal feelings and situations we've been through, we react instead of responding. I've learned that it's much easier to just respond. Responses don't come with a big deal of, drama behind them. But right in the moment, if you just react, that takes things in a total different direction. And we all know if you do that with the wrong man, he typically shuts down. So now you still at a point, we don't have a solution to this problem. So it's so many things, but yes, the triggers are real, and we all have them, and we've had them. Maybe we've healed and done some therapy and coaching, but the reality is we've all been triggered by something in our lives.
It is, and like I said, I'm really glad that men have somebody on their side like you to, really help. And if there was a couple who you were helping, or a man that you were helping and he was in a relationship, that probably would be the good time to call Coach Love and say, "Hey, I'm mad at her, and she getting on my nerves, and she pushing my buttons. I don't know what to do right now. What I want to do is leave, or what I want to do is, shut her out, or whatever it is." Probably a good time to call your coach and say, "I'm having a problem."
The DM is always open, guys. It's always open. I say it all the time, because sometimes you just inadvertently have a moment and you're like, "Listen, coach, what should I do?" Just like you said. So it's open. There's always someone that's willing to listen. Don't be afraid to reach out if you have that moment and you need some guidance in that space.
Yeah. I am a big advocate for self-care. I just finished writing my ebook, and it's out. It's called The VAST Method. And
Awesome.
VAST stands for Vision Building, Accountability, Self-Care, and Time Management. And in self-care, I talk about the importance of healthcare and therapy. And healthcare, because literally go to the doctor and get your blood drawn, check your system, make sure that your hormones are intact. Because women suffer from hormonal issues all the time, especially women of color, but women as a whole, we suffer from them all the time, and we don't realize sometimes we, going through these changes, and we don't understand what's happening. But men do as well.
Yes.
Men do as well. So we should be going to the doctor, checking our system, checking our our levels and everything, having the correct knowledge about where your body is on the inside will give you the chance to be proactive, to take care of yourself properly, so that when it comes to mentally, you're able to lift that brain fog that a lot of us have. We all working hard. We all have a lot of stress, especially now it's COVID, it's quarantine. We have been stuck in the house for a year.
Yes.
And even if you haven't been stuck in the house and you're going outside because you have to work, that's nerve wracking, because COVID is outside. So no matter what you're doing, you have to take care of yourself. And therapy, not just coaching,
Therapy.
mentor, a whole therapy.
Yes.
Somebody who is clinically trained to read and understand what you're saying and help you, heal your traumas, because we are all victims of childhood trauma. I don't care if you thought you had the best life, the best childhood ever. There is a trauma that happened in your life because of the way we all process life different. Your parents said something to you one day that is the reason why you put your left sock on before your right sock every day. I promise you, it doesn't even have to be something tragic. It's something that happened in your childhood that turns you, that makes your wheels turn the way they do. And some people is more traumatic than others, but therapy will help you pinpoint it, and that way you can work with it instead of having to work around it, all the time.
Yes, therapy is necessary. And I say that as a coach. I'm a coach, but I have a therapist and I have several coaches. But sometimes the recommendation to the men is that you're going to also need to go see a therapist. You and your significant other, or you and your children, maybe your whole family. You all need therapy. Whether you want to go or not, if your true goal is that you want to evolve into the absolute best man you can be, therapy can't be optional. But typically, like we talked about in our community and even just in our society as a whole, people really shy away from the reality that we need therapy. It's like this thing that, well, you're not cool if you go to therapy. Who cares? Like, at the end of the day, people will say things like, "Oh, you're crazy." I think they're not crazy. But I think it's really unique if you can decide that your pain and suffering is not worth you doing anything about. And you just say, I'm never going to see a therapist. Like, I don't want to do it. Yeah. Well, probably don't come back to my session because I'm probably not going to talk to you no more until you say you're ready to see a therapist. And sometimes when I have to coach people, I have to say, like, the help you need, I don't have, because more often than not, there are men that really need to see a therapist or a psychiatrist or a psychologist, any one of those, like you said, clinically trained professionals that can really get to the root of what's going on with you and really offer you a different way to navigate through your life. And then maybe after you do a few sessions with them, then you can come back and say you want to have a session with me as a coach or a session with another coach. But I feel like we need to get to a space in our society where therapy is a normal part of life. Like, it's not like, oh, we only go if there's a problem. Go before the problems start. And then the other thing I advocate for, just as a self-love advocate, just the same way you said, is that when it comes to the care for the self, every person individually should be willing to seek out professional guidance in that space. Whether you think, like you said, you've had the absolute best life, because typically when I have a conversation with someone that says, oh, my life was great, when you really get into the conversation, you realize those people are suffering more than the people we thought were having trauma, right? Or that we knew for sure were having trauma in their lives. Because typically people have this thing that they do, they like to hide the truth and they don't want to be honest about it. They like to live by that beautiful river, the Nile. And I understand why they do that, but the reality is, like, you're hurting yourself more in the space of your evolution if you really don't believe that you need to ever, and I'm not saying maybe you have to go to therapy for years upon years, but at least in your childhood, when you became an adult, have you had a conversation about what you experienced as a child? And then before you get into relationships or before you get married and become, or how about before you become a parent? Have you went to therapy to talk about your experiences again as a child, or how you've had some experiences as an adult, to just be sure that you're in the proper mental, emotional, and spiritual space to now take on this assignment of being someone's parent or someone's caregiver or someone's significant other. We typically don't do that. We just kind of go through life like, oh, I'm fine. And then we become parents and get in relationships and everything's going all sideways because we're too scared to say, I have a problem, but I don't know what the solution is, and I don't really know that I want to go ask somebody to help me because that's not what I was told to do. And typically for men, that's what happens. Men and boys are never told, like, hey, you can ask me to help you. It's like, oh, well, you're not a man if you can't do it yourself. Like, what? Who told you that? There's a lot of false narratives about what it means to be a man, and one of them is, like, you got to just be strong. You ain't got time to be crying. You ain't got time to be emotional and be talking about your problems. Get to work, get to this money and take care of your family and, go do some crunches and keep it moving. That's what most of the men do, They provide for their families, but they're suffering. They're going to their jobs and they're suffering. They at the gym doing 1,000 crunches and crying in between sets because they're like, man, this is not the life I dreamed for myself. So we got to think about it like, as good as it might look on the outside, it's a lot of turmoil on the inside. And I'd like to think that you could be in a space where you're one moment away from finding out how much suffering a man in your life is really enduring, just based on what could happen in a moment now because we're all locked in the house together, right? Yeah. With no way out, and we don't know when we're going to be able to come out.
Oh, God.
We just can't take it lightly. I apologize. I went on a tangent, but I got a strong thing about therapy. It's a necessity, especially now. The world is not getting any calmer and sweeter and cooler. So therapy needs to be on your docket, like on your calendar every month.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is a pressure in being alive. There's no
yes.
There's a lot of pressure. When you are alive and part of society, even when you're not a part of society, you're alive, there's pressure. From the yes. on to I can't wait for this baby to start, crawling. I can't wait for the baby to start walking. I can't wait for the baby to start talking. Can the baby be 1 day old first? It's pressure. It's pressure when you were a kid. You didn't have to go to school. Now they teaching you extra stuff. What? I just want to be with my mom right now. You know, it's pressure.
Right.
And as an adult, you have to maintain a social status, you know, where you don't look crazy and get cast out, or you don't come off as, you know, whatever those things are. A social status, a mental status, financial status. And then on top of that, you have to process your feelings under
That's
this.
a lot.
Yeah, you have to.
That's a lot. I'm just overwhelmed listening. That's a lot. No, it's a lot.
You can't even process your feelings according to how you want to live
Right.
your life. You have to process them according to all of those other standards that were there before you were born. So it's pressure being alive, and the best thing to do is to speak to somebody who is able to, you know, a clinical professional who's able to really help you, and then have a coach to, because that's what coaches are. I'm a personal development coach to women, and that's what I am. I am not a therapist. So if I see a woman really has some pain that she's harboring, some hurt that she has inside, I'm going to say, I need you to talk to a therapist. Sign up for a therapist. I will help you find a therapist. And guess what we'll do after? You will not be alone in doing the things that the therapist told you to work on. I'll work on them.
Exactly.
But I'm not going to diagnose you and give you things. I'm not a therapist. I will help work on it with you because I've been there. I go to therapy regularly. You know,
Yes.
it's important.
Yes.
It's important. So yes, I'm glad we spoke about that because that's important for men and women to get some therapy.
You cannot aspire big and inspire bigger without therapy.
And you can't be victorious. You can't be victorious without it either. That's right.
That's right. That's right.
So, Coach Love, I do want to thank you again for joining me. I am coming to the ending part of my podcast. And at the ending part of my podcast, we play a little game. It's called the Introvert Corner. So, Introvert Corner is, I'm a stark introvert. And so I made this because there are things that extroverts will do, even other introverts will do, that I'm not going to do because that's just, I'm not. Okay? I'm scared.
Right.
That's true. So, but when I see you do the thing, I'm going to say, hey, come here. What did you just do? How was that? Well, how did that feel? Because I want to learn. I still want to understand the experience, even though.
Right.
So this is what this introvert corner is for me. So I ask you 3 random introspective questions, and your answer might be different than the answer I would give. It might give me a different, thought process. So I like that. All right?
Oh, that sounds fun. That sounds fun. Let's try it.
Okay. So number 1, where is your happy place?
My happy place is in a book or in a glass with adult juice by the beach. Adult juice is involved somewhere in the happy place.
Yes. And mine is laughing with my friends and my family. Laughing is my happy place with friends and family. I don't know what it is about that. I just feel so, especially most of all, laughing with my dad. I don't know why. We're like 2 goofballs. He'll start laughing. I'm like, what is so funny? Like now I feel it in my stomach. Like I have to laugh. Something happened and I don't know what's wrong with him. So
right. I can attest to that. I definitely enjoy those moments with my father as well. I'm just like, you are so goofy, sir. Like, and sometimes I look at him like, do people notice you really like this? Like, what are you doing?
Yes.
But those are the best moments, right? They're the best moments. We're glad that we have them. So laughter, definitely.
Yeah.
Sometimes good happy place.
A random, he'll go, I'm like, what are you doing? It's quiet, and all of a sudden he's like, are you okay?
Right.
Just to be silly. So yes, that's my favorite. That's my happy place. So for you, is you got a book, some wine, and by the water side.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that.
I love the water. It's a special place for me.
All right. So number 2, describe your healthiest self.
My healthiest self is definitely who I am now, because for the first time in my life, I'm the most aware of everything about myself. I'm not in denial about any aspects of who I am anymore. And then, of course, just the evolution that took place in my life has just brought me to a space where I'm happier than I ever been, and that I just feel like there's so much more opportunity for me because I did do the hard work that I teach people about. You know, I got to this space through doing the hardest work I've ever had to do in my life. And that was self-reflect and be really honest in that space of self-reflection. And then I had to do something about it. And because I did that, that got me here. So that's right where I am now, as 40-40, as I like to say, is the absolute healthiest that I feel like I've ever been. And I think I'm excited about it because I now know there's potential for me to be even better. So this is a great space. So when people tell you that something happens when a woman turns 40, I want you to know that's true. It may be different for each of us, but I promise you there's something very revolutionary about turning 40 that makes you realize, you know, everything you've been through was in some way, shape, or form worth it. But then you're like, you know what? These next 4 decades, I'm about to knock it out the park, you know? There's a certain level, I think, of just confidence, but also just calmness and peace that you get if you do your hard work. So,
like that.
Yeah.
I'm on my way to 40. I'm 36, but I'll be there. You know how that happened. 36 years happened like that, so.
Yeah. We're getting close. I told my dad about you and showed him a picture. He was like, is she your age? I was like, she's so close, but I don't know how old she is looking at this picture, right, Dad?
Yep.
It's nice that we age in a way that doesn't show everything we've been through, right?
Exactly. For me, my healthiest self is I think it's similar to you. Like, I'm just learning about myself when I'm open to learn more and more about myself, and I'm open to healing, because sometimes we could get information overload when we're healing, because we want to heal so bad. We're like reading all the books, we're like watching all the podcasts, you know, like, I don't like this, forget it.
Yep, taking all the notes, like, I'm gonna figure this out.
There's one more thing, I need a nap. But when I'm open to processing and doing those things, I just feel like that's my healthiest self. And
absolutely.
You know, if I work out consistently, that would be nice too. But you know, that's another story for another day.
We're gonna work on that. You know how they say don't put it off till tomorrow, but we're gonna say that for 2021, okay? We're not gonna talk about it. Because I think if we get too into it right now, you know, Mo, when we get snatched right now, they're not gonna be ready in 2021. So we might just have to start at the beginning, to make them, give everybody a chance to catch up for what's coming. Because girl, when we get snatched, it's over. It's over.
God willing. Okay.
We could do it.
Yes. All right. So number 3. What lights up your world?
Love, like really super unconditional love, because that just encompasses acceptance of everything, and there's a really big light and peace of that. So however you relay that to yourself, to your family, to your journey, unconditional love is the thing that sets me on fire. And you'll hear me say, as my mantra, I guess people call it, I always say now, I am love. And I say that because I can say it and mean it, because that's my name though. Like, the first 4 letters of my name really are love, but I think the excitement is in really having the opportunity to finally discover that in my journey. So, like, just again, doing that hard work and healing brought me to a space to really understand what love is and what it really encompasses. So now that I know that, can't help but be super, like, stoked about it all the time.
I like that. For me, say being made to feel special, like when somebody thinks of me, or, you know, a surprise, like, oh, here, this is for you, like, oh, for me, you know, that makes me so happy. Or just as simple, like yesterday, my dad just called me like, hey, I'm just calling you to say hello. Like, that makes me feel like light up. It just in general, just to be thought of or considered, or, you know, want to be connected with, that lights up my world.
That's beautiful. I apologize, I'm muted because they're doing some work outside.
Oh, I'm in New York City. I believe too. I understand. No problem.
Like they always come to cut the grass at the wrong time. They blow the leaves at the wrong time, Mo. I don't know why they keep doing it. I'm kidding, but that's awesome. I think it's beautiful that you can say that because there are some people that have a reservation about saying that someone else desiring to connect with them is like something that would light them up. Some people are afraid of that to say like, yeah, other people make me feel like special, and when they make me feel special, that lights me up. So I think that's so dope because that means that you appreciate the opportunity of people in your life. So that's awesome. That's an awesome thing to have as a light. That's awesome.
Yeah, because you know why? When I was a little kid, I always had I don't remember when it started, so it must have started super young. I always had a like, they don't want to be my friend kind of thought process. Don't know where it came from. Had no idea, and so I had a lot of work to do to get past that thinking. But still,
Right.
there's something in me that says, "Oh, they thought of me." Like,
Right. Right. Right.
it's still
Yeah.
part. And
Yeah.
I guess that's just always going to be a part of me. I like when people want to connect with me because I do want to connect with people. You know,
Right.
so I like that feeling.
That's good. That's good because people now know, like, hey, she likes that. I should do that for her because she likes that. So that's cool. I think it's nice when we can say we really appreciate that connection with people. That's cool. And coincidentally, this month, guys, quick plug, that's what we're talking about at Keepsake Motivation on Instagram. We're talking about friendship because we didn't finish the conversation last month, but I think friendship is such a powerful thing, and it's one of the best ways we get to learn ourselves, I think, because friends typically, they love us the way they are, but really good friends, they don't mind chin checking you, like, listen, lovey, you ain't as good as you think you are right now. Get yourself together, girl. Those are the kind of friends I love because I don't need nobody lying to me. Mo, I'm too old for that. I need to just tell me the truth so I can figure out how I'm going to deal with it, right? Save us some time. What the problem is, officer? Please tell me so I can fix it.
That's right. That's right. Tell me what's going on. So yes, 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 yes. So as you said, you guys can find Coach Love on Instagram at Keepsake Motivation. And what can they find when they come over there? What do you got going for you?
uh, it's a little busy over there sometimes, Mo. I just started back this month, literally like 2 days ago, doing lives again on Wednesday. But typically, there's always open conversation about whatever the subject is for that month, but it's always related to heart work and the self love trifecta. So we talk about forgiveness and gratitude and positive affirmations all the time. We talk about healing. We talk about just everything that you could possibly think of that's related to the self, whether you're a man or a woman, right? And then if you do come and hang out, like in the next few weeks, you'll see information about the new TV show that's coming out in a couple of weeks. That's going to be called Heart Work with Coach Love. You'll see some information about the new book I have, my first solo project as an author, which is also called Heart Work. And it's about the self-love trifecta again, and it's going to be focusing on the 12 benefits of practicing forgiveness, gratitude, and positive affirmations. Outside of that, you'll just catch me in the comment section, on dope pages like Aspire Big, Inspire Bigger. I said that last night on the podcast. I'm not hard to find because I believe in supporting my fellow kings and queens that are in business. So if you really want to find me, just catch me on somebody else's live or somebody's podcast in the comment section because I'm always there cheering everybody on and making sure I interact because how else are we going to know how well we're doing if we're not sharing and connecting with one another as we grow, right? So, but I'm out here in these streets at Keepsake Motivation.
Good, good. Well, you guys show Coach Love some love on her Instagram and on the interwebs here and through. And you guys remember to aspire big so that you can inspire bigger, and always look to speak with love, lead with love, and
Mhm.
think with love
Always.
uh, when you are dealing with your loved ones and others, because it really does open a space for healing, and we all need healing. So
Yeah.
that's my little opinion
I
on.
love that. I love that.
So yes, y'all. Thank y'all for joining. I do want to say, we said it earlier. Coach Love has a book coming. I have an ebook that is out called The Vast Method. All links will be down below. I'm gonna link everything that Coach Love is doing down below. I'm gonna link everything that I'm doing. Go get the ebook. Go get the book. Go follow us on Instagram. Inspire Big, Inspire Bigger. Keepsake Motivation, and just get yourself some good healing. I'm talking about vision building, accountability, self care, and time management in that ebook, and it is the book, the method that I use to pull myself out of the darkest and toughest times of my adult life. So I know that if it worked for me, it's gonna work for somebody else. You know. All right, y'all. So I'll
Thank you, Mo. Thank you so much, Queen Mo. I had a great time.
yes, yes. All right, lady, y'all.
Take care, guys.